Hi, everybody. I am Chef Dan Danis, and today is a very special day because it is the first of my videos. I am creating cooking techniques uh, from uh, from college that I learned, and will be sharing them with the public. Um, and I hope you like. So. And it's funny because my first recipe isn't out of the Gislin Bible, as we used to call it. Um, the Gislin was a textbook that I used in college, and is one of the greatest cooking reference manuals out there. They do have a seventh edition that can be uploaded off the internet. So if you want to look at that, some things change. Okay, so um, but most practices continue. Um, so I want to make au jus, very simple little recipe. All right, that you can have instead of gravy on your roast beef. Um, Now I also have an Instagram account, so it's garlicman454. I haven't been to it in a while. We made it in college and took a few pictures. It was part of the course, and I would like to update it and add to it. So if you want to check it out, that's cool. I'm looking for subscribers, of course, and thumbs ups and whatever I can get off of this YouTube. Um, I hope that I can be informative and uh, and offer something, for a change, purposes of a change at dinner time, or the need for a snack that isn't chips in the middle of the night. I did a little chicken fried rice the other day. I use minute rice. Okay, it's not jasmine rice, whatever, but there's nothing wrong with minute rice. I mean, if you ask a professor at my college, he'll say something else. We learned a lot about rice. You'd be surprised, if you really look into rice. But moving on, um, I want to talk about au jus. So, au jus is not normally used. It's not. Sorry. Usually, there isn't a thickener added to au jus. Okay, it's a very liquidy kind of gravy, but it's not gravy. It is gravy. It's not gravy. Gravy's thick. Au jus isn't made with a thickener, but in my recipe today, I'm going to add a little bit of flour, a little bit of thickener. Okay, because I want to. And so there are two ways you can come up with your beef broth here. So you can go to the store and you can buy a beef broth. I already did this video on Meta, uh, so I'm going to be doing the video on Meta, Facebook, right, and YouTube as well. They're going to be two different videos, but talking about the same thing. The video I did today about this on Meta went really well. Um, and I'm hoping this one goes just as well. Um, Sometimes I can be funny. Sometimes, I'm not very good at being funny. So that's the interesting part about it. I say something funny, I don't even know it's funny. And I laugh at my own jokes, which is a little pathetic, but that's okay. So beef broth. All right. So you can do this two ways. You can buy the beef broth broth. Comes 900 milliliters. This was on sale at my Shoppers Drug Mart here in Vanier. And uh, I love it when things are on sale. But 900 milliliters. Typically in this recipe, I'm going to be using 600 milliliters of this. Okay. And so 250 milliliters is a cup. So just a little bit more than a cup. We're going to be using it a couple of times. Anyways, and that'll be that. So you can use that stuff, or if you're making a roast beef, right? Um, you can use that stuff and deglaze the pan at the same time. And deglaze, I know it's a big word. Don't worry about it. I'll tell you about it. There's not much to it. Deglazing, all right, is the remnants of your roast, all right, or your steak or your pork chops or whatever, that the remnants that's in the pan, all right, that's tons of flavor. That's what that is, all right. So all you're doing really is you're making that leftover stuff into a nice sauce, you know. So you're going to deglaze the pan, all right. You do that when you're making a reduction, all right. You can make a very nice glace. That's something different. It's not deglaze, it's glace and glass. So that's a sauce, a reduction sauce. We're using red wine in this Au Jus. You would use red wine as well in your reduction. All right. So what you're going to do if you're going to deglaze something is you want to use a little bit of a filter. So I have coffee filters. I have several different types of filtration devices to separate all the hard big stuff, like the onions and stuff like that, the rosemary, Um, I'm going to use rosemary in time when you're cooking a protein, a meat of some kind. You go to the store and buy the fresh stuff, okay? Or you can put it in your spice rack and have it dry. Not so much of a big deal. The great difference is that when you buy fresh rosemary, it's in stalks, big pieces of it, right? So I mean, you can throw the big pieces and it's all together. When you buy it dry, all the little spikes are separated, right? So, but we're going to filter it. We're not going to worry about it too much. So we're deglazing a pan, and we're going to filter that, and we're going to add a little beef broth to help you deglaze the pan. You're going to rub it with a wooden spoon, right? Usually a flat root wooden spoon. You can use a spatula as well, and you're rubbing it, getting all the remnants from that pan into the liquid, the broth that you're going to pour in. All right, and then you're going to take that and filter it into another pot. All right, and the filter is going to catch all the stuff. So you're going to have another pot right there, and then you're going to set that on the stove, and that's when it reduces. That's how you make a glaze, a reduction sauce. Eventually, it's beautiful, but it takes a very, very long time because you gotta keep filtering it to like 3 or 4 different pots. Before you know it, you only have a little bit, and it's a beautiful, beautiful glaze thing, sauce. But we're talking about Au Jus here, so it's not so dramatic. It's just you can just use the beef broth, all right, or you're going to deglaze, and you're going to put it in a pot. So, and then you're going to mix it together. So that will be your broth, right? So when you filter it and you put it in another container, that's your broth, all right? So you already added some beef broth to it to deglaze the pan. That's your broth, okay, for the Au Jus. It's filtered, coffee filter or something. All right, strainer, um, even a colander. So, um, so we're going to take a hot pot. We're going to take a pot, maybe about that deep, okay? Maybe about that round. Got a handle on it. You're going to put it on the stove. You're going to turn the stove on, the element on. You're going to let it warm up. All right. Now you need red wine for this. You need butter for this. You need flour for this, with a little bit of flour. We're going to have our beef broth that we made from the glazing, or we're going to use a carton of broth that we bought at Shoppers Drug Mart, whichever. We want a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, or Liam Perrins works too. Salt and pepper. You need a whisk in your hand, and that's about it. Okay, I like to buy the little bottle of red wine. All right. Now with red meat comes red wine. With chicken or pork, use a Chardonnay, white wine, something like that. Okay. So here we're going to use red wine. I use about 75 milliliters. All right. Now, we're not really going for a flambe. All right. A flambe is when the flame comes up. When you put the red wine in. You can do a little flambe if you want to. All right. So instead of a pot, you're going to be using a big pan. All right. And you're going to get that flambe, but we're just making au jus. Okay. It's not, doesn't need to be dramatic. All right. Now, now you have your pot and it's hot, and you're going to put some butter in there. All right. So you're going to put like, I don't know, a square of butter the size of my lens. Okay. And I don't know, maybe about half an inch thick. All right. You're going to put that into the pot. All right. You're going to use unsalted butter, right? I mean, I guess you could use margarine or something like that. I don't see why not. It might be a little bit of taste difference, but I'm going to go with the unsalted black butter and just take a chunk out of it, stick it in the hot pot. The pot's hot, so as soon as you put the butter in there, it's going to sizzle and it's going to start melting, and you let it melt. So you're going to move the pot around in a circular motion so that the butter melts evenly in the pot. Now you have your whisk. You take a couple spoons of flour, tablespoon, maybe 1.5 tablespoons. All right, so that's a tablespoon here. It's not a teaspoon. Teaspoon's smaller, so a tablespoon is bigger. So about one, doesn't have to be heaping, but enough. All right, you just like that, and you're gonna whisk with your whisk. Whisk, 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 whisk. And then you're going to put your red wine in. All right. This is the best part, Okay. No, I'm just kidding. So, although I always find myself, finishing the little bottle, when I'm making a reduction, because what are you going to do with it? You're going to put it in the fridge. You're going to drink it anyways. Might as well have a little fun with it. Put on some 80s music and chug her down, right? So we're going to put 75, 80 milliliters of red wine into our really hot pot that's sizzling with butter and flour, and now red wine, and we're stirring it, okay? It's still hot. Keep the temperature hot. All right, like boiling temperature. Boiling, okay? And you're whisking. Now you're going to put your broth in. Now you're not going to put all your broth in. You're just going to put half of it. All right, so in my 900 milliliters, I'm putting about 300 milliliters, or just a little over a cup, 250 milliliters, right? So you're going to put that in 300 milliliters into that pot that's hot, and you're whisking and it's bubbling. It's hot, it's bubbling. All right. So now you're going to let it bubble a little bit. You're going to stir it a little bit. Give it about 2 minutes. Okay. Now you're going to put the other 300 milliliters into the pot of beef broth. All right. You got to do it like that. You got to separate a bit. All right. A little at a time. Now, all right, you're going to put Worcestershire sauce or Liam Parents. All right. I like Liam Parents. About this much tablespoon. All right. You want to put too much, but you want to put enough. You know, it's like soy sauce. You put too much soy sauce, it's not going to be right. And the taste buds, the palate's going to be like, too much soy sauce. So just keep it to about a tablespoon, which is, 30 milliliters. Oh, a little bit more than a tablespoon. So, I mean, you can measure that if you want to, but I mean, if it feels good, how much Au Jus are you making? I mean, if you're going to use the full 900 milliliters of beef broth, then maybe you want to go with 2 tablespoons. Maybe you want to go with 45 milliliters or something like that of Liam Parents, Worcestershire sauce. Now you add your salt and pepper to taste. Double T. T means to taste. And you whisk. And turn down the element now. Okay, and you're just gonna let it simmer. So what's gonna happen here is as it simmers, it's gonna reduce a little bit and it's gonna thicken up a little bit, but it's already at a nice consistency. All right, and it smells so good. And you're gonna let that sit. You're gonna turn off the burner. You're going to go and check on your vegetables, all right? You're going to check on your meat. You're going to check on your dinner list and your people who are going to show up, and you got to do the table up, and you got to find a gravy boat to put the jus in, or maybe some ramekins, which are like little bowls. They're like little bowls about this big, because Au Jus is like a dip. Only it's not like ranch dip. It's like a sauce, right? So you're going to cut your piece of roast, put it on your fork, and dip into the Au Jus and eat it. Okay, like that. Of course, you can pour it on. So you could put the Au Jus in a gravy boat if that's what you want to do. And then each person can grab the gravy boat and pour it on to their roast beef. You can do that. I like to make the Au Jus with all sorts of things. I mean, Au Jus is it's like a really fast reduction. That takes no time to make. A reduction is a sauce that you have at a French restaurant, and you pay a fortune for it, with your meat, with your protein, and it is so good because what it's called a glaze. It's called the sauce. All right, and it is one of the best sauces. But it takes a long time to make. I mean, it takes hours and hours and hours and hours and hours to make it, and you're scraping off the fat, and it's so wonderful. But in this case, it's just fast. It gets done. It's ready for your company, and it's not a gravy. It's called Au Jus. Au Jus, like a juice. And you can do it with your steak. You demi-glaze. You deglaze your pan when you make a steak. All right, and you're gonna have your onions and your rosemary and your thyme and the oils that your steak cooked in, right? And the bottom of the pan, it's all it's all that stuff at the bottom of the pan from cooking the steak. So you put the steak in a plate, and then you put a little bit of beef broth in there, mix it up a bit, and then you put you put it through a filter, right? A good filter. I mean. What's a good filter? Well, the stuff we're told to use is here. Hold on, I'll be back in a second. All right. Now you can buy these. You can buy these cheesecloth at the store. All right. Now I keep it in here, but it's cheesecloth. Okay. It's typically what you're supposed to use. All right. And it looks like this. Natural cotton cheesecloth. All right. It looks like bandages you would see at a hospital or something that you would put. You ever lost a tooth? All right, and the dentist give you these little square gauzes, and you stick that into that spot where the tooth was. All right, and it absorbs. Well, instead of being this big, it's this big. All right, it's called cheesecloth, and you use it as a filter. Okay, so you take what's left over in that pan that you made the steak in. All right, and you might want to scoop out the onions. All right, but to put up next to your steak. But if you don't want any onions and it's just for the taste of the jus that you're making, then you leave it in there because it'll be filtered out in the cheesecloth. Add a little bit of beef broth. It will liquefy. You scrape the bottom of the pan and turns into a really nice thing. Add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. You don't need to add any flour in this situation. All right. But you don't need to add any flour in that specific situation. Now, in this one, we're making a batch of Au Jus. All right. In this one, you're just going to cover your steak with the jus. All right. You won't be putting it in a ramekin, a little bowl. All right. So different situation calls for different situations. Right. So in this one, you're just going to filter it in a cheesecloth. And add the ingredients, red wine, and heat it up a little bit, and then you can pour it on your steak like that, and it's just beautiful. It really is. It's just it's a fast glass. It's a fast glass. That's all it is. So I know it sounds confusing. Glass to glaze. But it's not really that difficult. So you get it after a while. Deglazing a pan, glass. So that's about it. All right. So, I mean, you add your red wine, your broth, Worcestershire, salt and pepper to taste. You're whisking it up. I like to use a whisk for these things. You don't make much of a mess this way. Once you pass it through the cheesecloth, I mean, it can go in a bowl, it can go in a jar, it can go into another pot. Most people put it in another pot, but that's about it. And you have your jus. Okay. You can make a jus with chicken. In this case, red wine, nice white Chardonnay is very good. Same sort of situation. Again, you wouldn't really use flour. All right. If you're not making a batch. All right. So in our case, we're making a jus, but we're making a batch of it. All right. So we want a little bit of thickness to it, not too much. All right. A jus is made without a thickener, as I said earlier. Okay. But if you're just making it for one or two, then don't bother with the flour. Let's see here. Yeah, and that's about it. So I hope you liked it. Trying to remember if I forgot anything. So my Instagram is garlicman454. You can also find me on Facebook. And I'm going to make something else tomorrow, I guess, for my YouTube, for this YouTube channel. And I hope I get a thumbs up. It might sound a little confusing, here and there, but as we get into more cooking, things will make more sense. Deglazing the glass, it's a little confusing, you know. but once you hear it a few times, then you got it. The cheesecloth is probably the best thing to use. I don't know, maybe a colander is not a good idea because things go through it, and you don't want anything to go through it. In fact, when you're making a nice glaze as a reduction sauce, you're using the cheesecloth several times. So you reduce into one pot and then reduce into another pot and reduce into another pot, and every time you're switching pots, you're filtering, taking all that stuff out of there. And another reason why it takes so long is you got to cool it, so that all the fat can be skimmed off the top. When you cool it, it solidifies, so you can take that skin off, the fat off, and it's just so beautiful. I'll work on that one. Maybe we should talk about that in the next video, to define and understand just exactly what a reduction is, because a reduction is one of the most important parts of being a chef. Because this sauce, it goes with most proteins. I'm going to want to talk about oysters and shrimps. I'm going to want to talk about pastas and masalas and all sorts of wonderful recipes, and what it takes to get your red seal. Because there is a lot to that red seal, and you'll have to take a test. And once you pass the test, then you'll be a red seal, and that's a real highlight in a person's life. Let me tell you, if you want to be a chef, take it from me. You got to know things, You got to know your temperatures, like the steak. Okay, so you might have extra rare. All right, some people like extra rare steak. That's like, what is that, 45 degrees Celsius? I like a little bit of blood in my steak, all right, but not too much, all right? So, you got extra rare, you got rare, you got medium rare, you got medium, you got medium done, and then you got well done, all right? So when you think of your temperature, so every chef should have a little temperature meter on them. All right. So one comes in Celsius, one comes in Fahrenheit. All right. You got to know your temperatures, man. All right. So like a rare steak is 120 to 125 degrees Fahrenheit. Medium rare is 130 to 135. Medium is 140 to 145. Medium well is 150 to 155 degrees Fahrenheit. And then well done is 160 to 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so you got to know that, you got to know that it's 165 degrees Fahrenheit for chicken cooked. All right, you can't have chicken anything less than that because you could get sick. And that's another thing I got to talk about one of these days, is all the things that make you sick. Because if you're going to be a chef, you are not going to want to make people sick. That's a no-no. You can make food this way and that way and almost any way you want because you're a chef, right? But you don't want to make people sick. Hamburger, 160 degrees. Now, there's one thing about raw meat, it's like steak tartare, right? I'll tell you something about something like steak tartare. Now, the reason why, all right, it can be served raw is that it's made with many different kinds of acids, all right, and when it's mixed together, um, it kills the bacteria. That's what it does. All right, and people have an egg on it, right? It's like, I don't know how people can do it, but people do it. They have a quail egg on it or a regular egg. It's the yolk, right? And when it comes to steak tartare, they cut the steak really, really thin slices, and sometimes just little pieces. All right, so they'll cut the slices again, this way and that way, and it's chilled. The meat is chilled, and then it's mixed up in a mixing bowl with the different herbs and the different acidic things. Again, you're using Worcestershire sauce and onions and whatnot. I mean, there's parsley, I guess, mixed up in it. But you don't get sick because of the acids. There's more story to it. But and you can look it up, and it has something to do with something people used to make it a long time ago, and it's they call it's cooked, but it's cooked without using heat or a flame. All right, it's cooked using. In the old days, it was cooked using the heat of a horse. I know, that's funny, isn't it? Yeah, but so you can look that up, if you want to read something interesting about steak tartare. But one of these days I might try it. I've never really eaten oysters. I love mussels, but something about it. I had to shuck a lot of oysters. Becoming a chef, I shucked a lot of oysters. People love oysters, full of calcium, just tons and tons of calcium. Okay, well, anyways, I was supposed to be done talking like 10 minutes ago. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will come up with some more stuff to talk about, and I hope you can learn lots from me, because I am enjoying this quite a bit, talking about something that I love, and that's what you'll end up doing. You're going to talk about something you love because you go into cooking because you love it, and then you just keep cooking, and you keep cooking, you keep cooking. The more you cook, the better you get, you know. So that's it. I'm gonna end the stream. Have a great day. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a like, whatever it is, and leave a message. Yeah, tell me what you want. Tell me what I should prepare. I could create something, whatever you want. I can make almost anything now. I wasn't sure if I could make almost anything a few months ago, but it's all about research. It's a lot of fun. Okay, bye-bye. End stream. There it is. Your stream will stop immediately and you will no longer be live. End.